The role of media in politics and culture is increasingly complex and difficult to understand. This is, of course, related to societal, technological, and cultural changes over the last 30 years. My name is Kristoffer Holt. I'm a professor in Media and Communication Studies here at Linnaeus University. One aspect of the increasing complexity of today's media landscape is the emergence over the last years of powerful alternative media channels. What is alternative media then? Alternative media are media that distribute news and views outside and also in opposition to the existing powerful mainstream media channels in any given societal context. The importance of this has really increased over the last years because the threshold to publicity has been lowered. The tools available for people to create, disseminate, and get a reach for their media content has been facilitated by technological advances. Today, we don't only have powerful mass media who distribute selected views and topics for people to discuss. They don't they don't own the agenda to the same extent that they used to. Alternative voices have increased possibility of impacting what people have opinions about, what they are discussing around the kitchen table. Now, we shouldn't overestimate the power of alternative media, but they are a new player on the field and something that we need to recognize because they're beginning to have also political impact. We have seen this over the last years in recent elections. People are not only turning to the mainstream big TV networks or newspapers. Increasingly, people are seeking information about politics and cultural issues through these alternative channels. Of course, this is related to the growth of social media, which is one of the major distribution channels for alternative media content. So how can we understand alternative media? The way I look at it in my research is through a relational approach. The relational approach means that in order for something to exist as an alternative, there has to be something to be an alternative to in the first place. So the understanding of alternative media is depending on how we understand the mainstream media. So in any given context, you will have criticism of the way that political issues are discussed in society. Objections to selection of topics, objections to the way that issues are framed, objections to what kind of actors are given a voice and a platform within the major mainstream media channels. Depending on what this criticism is, you will see alternative media who position themselves in relation to the mainstream from various perspectives. So, what's the impact of alternative media? What role do they play? And the first thing is that they constitute channels of news and views that are outside of the channels of professional, traditional legacy journalism. This has many consequences. First of all, it's a way to disseminate content that are outside of traditional control. So you don't have the same routines of fact-checking, you don't have the same ethical considerations as professional journalists, which means that the news diet that comes from alternative media will differ from traditional journalism. This can be both for good and for bad. we have seen that, of course, alternative media channels are a place in which disinformation will take a hold and will be a channel for the spread of falsehoods and rumors and unsubstantiated claims. On the other hand, it's also a channel for increased media pluralism. It gives a platform to perspectives, actors, and views that are otherwise marginalized or not heard in the traditional media sense. So we can see both positive and negative consequences of this. Also, the relational approach that I introduced earlier is useful for us to understand the impact of alternative media, because one of the things that we see that has the biggest impact is the mere existence of alternative media. As soon as they have a certain reach, a certain audience, they become a player in the field which all the other players need to take into account. In other words, they create reactions and counter-reactions from the people that they challenge, in this case, the mainstream media. That spirals into increased visibility for the alternative perspectives. The moment traditional media, mainstream media, start attacking, talking about, or questioning what the alternative media are talking about, they increase the reach of their perspectives. And this is related to also increased polarization and conflict within public discourse. That's one of the main things that we have seen over the last 5 to 6 years, especially with alternative media related to populist politicians who use them as a way to introduce controversial topics that are then reacted against from the mainstream elites. This spirals into increased polarization and hostility within the media discourse. That is one of the most important ways in which alternative media has an impact on society today. The relational approach to alternative media also means that we have to look at this development in a dynamic perspective. Things will not always remain the same. The world of media is constantly changing, and the positions which different actors occupy will move around, and they will always position themselves against each other. So what is considered as alternative today might be included in what people assume to be the mainstream tomorrow. This is an important notion because the positions are not fixed. And that is why it's so important to look at alternative media from different contextual perspectives and place them in relation to whatever they position themselves against. The world of media is ever changing, and media change is here to stay. Thank you for listening.